Nesters, we've had to wait a while for this season review pod with so many big storylines still attached in terms of ongoings at the West Coast Eagle post the 2025 campaign. But we've had to wait a little bit because of some big news in the Nest family. As I'm sure most of you are aware, Drew Jones has welcomed little Max into the world. Congratulations, Drewy. How's it going?
Hello,
now
Gaby.
that you're a dad, and yet a first Father's Day not long after.
Yeah, it timed impeccably by Max, to be honest. It was on the bye weekend of the final, so I didn't miss any footy on that first crazy weekend. And and I got a really great Sunday. Went out for our first proper outing with Max and Izzo. Went for brunch down the road. It was like teeming down with rain in Melbourne, so we had to drive about 200 metres just to avoid getting wet. But yeah, it was. We got a spot right out front. You know, it all worked out perfectly. We had lots of space and beautiful day. And Max has been a dream, to be honest. It's been an amazing start. He's already seen an AFLW women's win on the couch. He's had his first, NFL red zone morning. Didn't quite make it for the Arsenal-Liverpool game. But he's had a good start. Lots of sport on. And being at home with him has been amazing.
Good news, mate. Congrats. Great to hear. Let's go to the AFLW. Let's start there, hey? Because how good has that been? I mean, there's so many big things to talk about. Campbell Chessar, the coaching changes, Harley Reid, trade and draft news. And then we're going to do a review of the season and go through every player and do a bit of a pass-fail analysis. But the AFLW form has certainly got Eagles fans really happy. I mean, the improvement under Daisy Pearce continues. I was, tracking the scores on Sunday, but finally got some time to sit on the couch, flicked over for the last 5 minutes, literally flicked over as Port Adelaide got it back to a 1-point margin. And I found myself kind of smacking the couch as the Eagles, put 2 or 3 on the board quickly to win another game. Ella Roberts is a freak. It's just great to hear the song being played after games again.
Absolutely. So consecutive games, the Eagles have kicked 5 goals in a last quarter to win and come from behind. So we did it against St Kilda at RCA Park and then against Port Adelaide last weekend at home. So, that's never been done by the Eagles team, quite obviously, through what's been a difficult difficult start to the club's history. But, yeah, all these young guns who we've invested in, who Daisy's shown a lot of faith in, they're all sort of coming good at the right time. And, as you mentioned, Ella Roberts, who was amazing against St Kilda in the forward line in the last quarter, and then Daisy swung that move again against Port Adelaide, and she's an absolute freak and she's good everywhere. But, Painter's been good, and young Wrench is, a lot better than I thought. And, we expect, Charlie Thomas is going to step up and do her thing. And I'm missing probably some other names in there, but they're becoming more familiar to us, and they've had a really good start to the season. And it sets up a chance for us to finally break our Western Derby duck against Freo, who have had a slower start to the season. So it's a massive game this Sunday night. I can't wait.
Yeah, and as someone who grew up loving Peter Sumich, I love seeing the number 4 being worn so well by Ella Roberts. Had me thinking. Yep. Now that Dom Sheed's retired, does Jobe Shanahan get the number 4 for the men's team? Just to follow on from Sumich, only the 1 year, but he's on the high number as you do. I just wonder if that'll be the move. Shanahan, number 4, you're our next, superstar big forward. Peter Sumich made this name famous. Seems like a natural fit.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Number 1 is going to be available as well. So someone's going to have to take that.
True.
But I mean, 4 is 7's my favourite number. 4 is close second. So I would love to see Shanahan in 4. That's an interesting thought. And I like the Sumich big forward. There's history there with the Eagles. I like where your head's at.
Okay. Well, we have bigger items to discuss outside of that. I guess following on though from the AFLW form. The recruitment of Daisy Pearce looked like a pivotal moment. It's shaping up to be that. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that now in terms of our men's coaching moves. Andrew McWalter is just getting the broom right through his coaching staff. The news about Simon Goodwin potentially coming over, I can't see it happening just because I think the links to Sydney are much stronger with his partner there, and I'd be surprised if he ends up being Andrew McWalter's assistant a year after Minnie was his assistant at Melbourne. But it's a sign of how much harder we're likely to go in that space. And with Schofield and Webster gone, and Mitch Duncan coming in, Radford from Melbourne coming in, clearly Andrew McWalter has said, a year in, I've had a look at this and I need to change it up massively, and we need some strong voices around this place supporting me and basically changing the culture for our playing group.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm fascinated by the way that the cards will be shuffled in the assistant coaching and development ranks, just because I think we've spoken about this previously, that there is this view that it is quite hard to get good coaching talent to move over to Western Australia if they're not, locally sourced. So McWalter pulling a few reins, drawing on some relationships from his previous stops as coach and player, which is obviously a massive advantage. But I wonder how much of a challenge it will be for him to build the coaching team that he really wants, and being able to convince people to come over. But it seems like he's made a pretty good start. I mean, the Mitch Duncan one makes just so much sense, although he had dropped pretty strong roots in Geelong. So it's good that we've been able to coax him back. And then, from all reports, that relationship at Melbourne was furnished well, which allows him to bring in someone who he's close to. So, one more big fish would be nice. But let's see how it all shakes out.
So on to the trade and draft discussion then. So the big news this week is Campbell Chesser preferring to take up Carlton's offer over ours and move back to Melbourne. What's your take on this? I mean, it feels as if he just needs a fresh change plus the lure to go home. It's so disappointing considering where he's been for 4 years and the form he showed at the end. I wonder if we could have acted sooner. It's a hard one, that, because he hadn't done a lot. We wanted to see him produce something before we offered a contract, but perhaps us just lagging on that a bit allowed Carlton to step in and make their offer. We could have snapped up Campbell before that was even a possibility, but then it would have seemed premature because he hadn't really made any inroads in the AFL. So it was a tricky one, but it's just a shame to lose him. Could we have done anything more, Drew, do you think? I know a trade still has to take place, but it's just such a shame for someone we've been so patient with.
Hard to know how far the contact goes back with Carlton, whether they had already shown a strong interest in him before he showed that good form late in the season. I mean, it's easy for us to say now that we should have started negotiating a new contract with him earlier, but we hadn't seen it. So he was promising late in the season. He was promising. He wasn't outstanding, but he was good. And certainly I think he showed a few of the qualities which we had seen in him, which we were hoping that, he could bring to our team. And clearly what Carlton believe they need, which is a bit of speed, a bit of an ability to spread from the contest. They've already been vocal about how that's something that they're chasing, and they've sold that dream to Chesser of being a starting 22 player or starting 23 player for the Blues. So my initial response was frustration and annoyance, because we had put so much time and effort into getting Campbell's body right. It sort of feels like he owed us. And that probably still sits in the back of my mind that, all like the rehab guys, the strength and conditioning guys who have spent all this time with Chess over the last few years trying to get his body right, trying to get his foot right, which has been such an issue for him. They've just, blood, sweat and tears. And then he finally gets on the park, plays a few games, and then he's off to Carlton. That just sort of doesn't sit that well with me, and feels like a bit of a waste from our perspective that we've put this time into trying to develop him as a player. So where does that sit? Where do you think it sits with us now in terms of his value? How hard of a bargain can we drive with Carlton? Considering I guess we sort of hold a few... Like, we hold the whip hand slightly in that we did come last. We've got the first pick in the preseason draft. Like, can we hold it over the Blues a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think we've seen the potential with him. I think he's definitely got upside. He's a strong runner. He looks to have regained some confidence. I think his body could still let him down over his career. That's still a question mark. And I don't think his contest work is great. I mean, he chases and tackles pretty hard, but, you know, he's not someone who's going to necessarily break through, big stoppages. He doesn't seem like he's that kind of guy. We haven't seen that yet. So there's still big question marks on him for the moment. But fair play to Carlton. They've got in front. In terms of what we can get, he's out of contract, so we don't have much clout in that space, but he's still a first-round draft pick with upside. You know, there's talk of us being keen on Elijah Hollands. We know that's a big risk. Chessa's stock's not saying much, but a higher than Elijah Hollands because of everything he's going through off field. So I'm not sure that factors in too much. I'm hearing rumours about Blake Acres. Obviously, he's much older than Chessa, but in terms of getting an experienced mid-in, I'm hearing word about him and the Eagles. So I wonder if that factors in somehow. You know, it feels like a second-round pick, Drew, whether it's this year or a future second-round pick. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, second rounder, I agree with 100%. I wonder if the Eagles end up doing a straight second rounder for Chessa with Carlton, I wouldn't be surprised if they ask for a future second, given how compromised the first round is this year. It pushes it back so far.
Yeah.
It ends up being, what's it going to be? Like Carlton's second round pick, like in the 30s? So, yeah.
In a weak draft.
Yeah. So I would say they will ask for a future second. The Blake Acres one is interesting because I think maybe people have just put two and two together. It sort of makes a little bit of sense. Like, he's dropped late in the season. He's a West Australian. Eagles need some more experience, a veteran presence, whatever. He's from WA. Do you think, like, Acres brings something to our team that we need?
Sorry, got you now. I think he does because, sorry about the noise there, because we're, Jaden Hunt's going, and I think wing is a hard position to play in a developing side. I think it's getting the footy and establishing yourself on the wing in a losing team is difficult. So that's probably why we brought Jaden Hunt in. He did a job, didn't excel at. If there are credible links to that, he can come in and do that for a couple of years and just allow the younger guy to develop and still go through the middle. And if he comes at a cheap price because he's not really being used at Carlton, well, yeah, it makes sense. I would be, in support of that move, but obviously we need inside mids. That's the key role that we need to find, a couple of them at least, which we've spoken about, the likes of Alex Davies and an experienced player like a Jack Steele. See, Lachie Neale's been linked in recent days. Not sure how strong those talks are and whether that's probable. I'd say probably not. Where else do you lie in terms of recruits? Is there anything else that's caught your eye in terms of players we might be able to attract?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Sam Flanders option as someone who could play inside mid, who's a bit more experienced, because he's experienced but not too old. The question is, like, what are you willing to give up to get Sam Flanders to the footy club, and are we going to be able to attract him to Western Australia when he could just go home to Victoria? So yeah, I think you have to be at least asking the question. And then Alex Davies, I don't think is as good a player as Flanders, but I think he would fit a need and a role really well. And then, like, Starcevic I'm probably warming to even more. If we can negotiate with the AFL as part of our assistance package that Brandon Starcevic doesn't dilute the free agency compensation for Allen. Otherwise, we'll have to trade for Starcevic because there's no way that we can risk losing pick 2. So that gets a bit complex, I think, with Starcevic. But if you think about bringing in a top 5 medium defender in the competition, albeit with a little bit of concussion risk, and I get that that's a touchy topic for our football club because of what's happened in recent years. But I think, getting him potentially for a reasonable price, if not for free, if the assistant package goes our way, I think that's massive for us. And then we need an inside midfielder who's going to be able to come in and play straight away. That's where it sits for me at the moment. I think Liam Ryan ends up being a pick, which we can either use in a trade for Starcevic or stash for next year. There's a few things we can do.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you thinking?
I'm liking Calamachi. That's the one I'd be like, all right, really keen. I'm not sure where we are with it, but he would really add a fair bit, I think, to our forward line in terms of work. I'd be keen for him. We've spoken about them, but then I tend to be on, which we can get through the draft. I'll touch on quickly. Everything we're hearing is that it's going to be Cooper Duff type with the first pick 2 ends up with Oscar Allen. Keen to know your thoughts on that. I understand a lot of fans saying they just want 2 mids. Get Sharp and Dersma. Don't want Cooper Dytler. And I completely get that argument because Winux take a lot longer to develop and we need mids right now and we don't have time to wait for Duff Tyler for 5 years to be the player that he can be. I will say this, though. If you look through records of ruckmen that have been taken in the top 5 or 10 picks, the players that are taken then generally end up being superstars. So the last 2 to be taken in that sort of realm of the draft are Luke Jackson and Nick Natanui.
Mm-hmm.
Both played straight away. Both had a huge impact straight away. The others, Cruiser was pick 1, was looking good, then got injured, so you have to add that caveat. Paddy Ryder was fantastic for a long period of time. The one who went early was a bit of a bust, was taken in the top 10, ended up being super players. Now, the other argument to that is you can get a lot of rucks later in the draft, and you can. And Max Gawn went later. In a number of very, very good ruckmen have been rookie list picks or later on, because you can just wait a little bit and see how they develop or pick them up from other clubs. And you can't adamant that Duff Tytler is the best player in the draft. Then I wouldn't want us, just because of our desperation for mids right now, to pass on him. Like, we may have to be a bit patient for this rebuild. And if he's going to be a superstar, well, maybe we persist with Flynn and Williams for a couple more years and then he ends up being a ruck and all of a sudden we can win a flag with him. Or he slots into the forward line and uses Jackson, and early on. In that regard, I'm warmer to it than a lot of other fans are.
Yeah, I've warmed to it. And here's what I would say. The Eagles have a lot of work to do in terms of their scouting and list management and understanding where's the cliff for the midfielders. So I think we need to take 2 mids, and I think they need to work out, how many gun mids are in the draft. Is there 3? Is there 5? Is there 7? Whatever the number is. So you take Duff Tytler and Dersma, let's say, with your first 2 picks, and then we've got a future first from Hawthorn. We've got teams that want to trade out of the early part of the draft because they've got academies and father sons and whatever. Can we get back in earlier with that, using that first and whatever other draft capital we've got at our disposal? Can we jump ahead and make sure that we get one of these other gun mids? That's what I would be trying to do if I was West Coast, is manoeuvring the draft magnets, shuffling assets around to try and make sure we capture 2 guns and still get Duff Tytler.
Mm.
And if it doesn't work out and we can't do it, well, then you just take the next best available player and you do your best with what you have. But I think passing on Duff Tytler and watching him become a generational talent when we had the chance to have a crack at him with picks 1 and 2 in the draft, if they believe he's the best player, if they believe he's, going to be a generational talent, then just back it in and just go, because I'm happy rolling with Williams and Flynn. I don't want to go out and spend $800 a year recruiting a ruckman from another club or spending draft capital to trade for one. But I've got no issue with bringing a young one in and developing them, because his development timeline works with our premiership build if we're starting at ground zero. So, yeah, I've warmed to the idea. Just quickly, I didn't get
100%.
I didn't get to this before, Gary. Yep. Just quickly. So Lachie Neale has got this idea in his head that he wants to finish his career in WA. He's got strong links here with his partner, etc. Do you like that fits? That fits with us, doesn't it? Him ending his career with West Coast.
Yeah, but it does. Except Brisbane are in a premiership window. They clearly want to try and win, another flag or two while he's there. Well, they're bringing in Oscar Allen. They got the Ashcroft boys, and they're going to go hard at another one. So they're going to want a lot in return. I'm all for that, of course. Why wouldn't we be? But I don't want us giving up too much just to bring in Lachie Neale for the fix now. And then, in 2-3 years he's gone, and what have we done? So I'm very cautious about how much we give up for one of those experienced players, which is why I don't mind a Jack Steele, because I don't think he'll cost that much. But a Lachie Neale would. That's my concern.
Yeah, so I think the caveat to all this is Brisbane essentially have to do it with, it's like, we'll give you our blessing to go home. We've got Levi, we've got Will, we've got guys who are ready to take the mantle. If Levi Ashcroft goes nuts over the next few weeks, they win a flag, he's amazing in the postseason, they might be like, oh, maybe the time is now. Maybe we are ready to hand the baton over. Or maybe it happens in a year's time when they have another crack next year. Who knows? But I can see it. I think it would fit what we really need now, but we're not going to, we don't want to pay over to get it done.
Yeah, I can see it in 12 months. I can't quite see it now, considering where Brisbane are. But hey, there's some validity to the story. Let's talk about Harley Reid. I mean, it's crazy that Harley Reid has re-signed for West Coast, and yet we're waiting this long to talk about it, but it did happen a couple of weeks ago now. What a moment, really, for the club. It's a landmark one, considering where we're at and his status in the game. If you had said at the start of the season, Drew, that we won one game and Harley Reid stays, I mean, none of us would have believed it. I think we all thought we had to have 3 or 4 wins by the halfway mark to keep him. So a lot of credit goes to Andrew McWalter and Don Pike and everyone who's managed to make Harley feel at home, and that the Eagles is the club for him. I remember where I was, and it was a different time, of course, in terms of the amount of media speculation around players, but I still remember where I was sitting, the time of the day when I read about Chris Judd's first contract renewal at West Coast. And it feels like, although we're at a completely different status as a football club, it feels like a similar kind of moment. I had the same feeling when the news came through that Harley had re-signed. It's just a massive boost for everything that we're trying to do.
Amazing. Certainly felt like it was trending that way the last couple of weeks, and obviously there's just so much discussion about the money and the length of tenure. I thought one of the reports was really interesting, that I think it was from Toomey saying only, say, a week ago he was seriously mulling over a 5-year extension, and then it ends up landing at 2, which I think makes sense. And then it makes sense for West Coast. It makes sense for him in terms of money. So he gets like the Wanganeen Miller of money over that extension. West Coast were never going to commit, 10 years, 25 million. That's too much to invest in an asset we haven't seen, quite enough from yet. So it gives everyone a little stay of execution. So West Coast get a chance to get better and to put pieces around Harley to become a credible football team again. It gives Harley a chance now to have a breather from the speculation. Gives him a chance to have an unbelievable off-season, pre-season, and then launch into year 3. And I think it's a win for all parties. And we were really close to getting this podcast out, weren't we? Just after he re-signed, but literally we slated the Friday, and I was like, yep, that's good. Garby has his little getaway with his family, we're waiting, for Max. Maybe he comes over the weekend. Maybe we end up getting induced on the Monday and literally is in labour Thursday night / Friday morning. And I was like, oh, we still might be able to fit it in. But no, we didn't. So apologies that we weren't able to talk about it straight away. But it's a euphoric feeling. And, we talked about this, Garby, early days. And even Harley even said it in one of those phone interviews, I reckon, that he did. He wants the project. He likes being at West Coast to build from the ground up. No doubt he's loving Perth because who wouldn't? And I think that Harley Reid's ascension into the top 10 to 15 players in the AFL happens next season.
I agree with you on that. I think all the word we're hearing from the likes of Liam Baker and Jack Graham, before Liam Baker's press conference after winning the medal, by the way, which we should also touch on, I think was fantastic. And everything you're hearing is that Harley is going to go gangbusters at the start of pre-season, and watch out. Now that he's got the contract behind him and the head is a bit clearer, he's going to try and lead this team. The other thing is, it's actually a 3-year deal in my mind. Like, I don't view this as just a 2-year extension because, yes, he was contracted for next year, but all the media reporting said he either stays or he goes now. So the fact that he's done the deal now, it's actually a 3-year deal, really. So he's got the next 3 years at West Coast, which takes him up to 5 all up. That's only one short of the length of stay for Chris Judd. I mean, so much can happen in that time. And that gives us, if it was only a 2-year extension, I'd go, geez, we're on the clock here in terms of getting better to keep him long term. We've got a little bit more time there. And the next 2 years are going to be key for him signing an extension. And we can see perhaps a real boost in that time that he goes, okay, yeah, this is happening here. Love Perth even more, making a truckload of money through other interests, maybe a part of the leadership group, etc. And with Job Shanahan and a few others, I can see a premiership coming, recruit better because of what Harley's doing based on what we expect, for next year. And, he stays maybe for his whole career. Like, that's feasible now. If it was just a 2-year stay, you'd be a little bit cautious, but it's actually got 3 years to work with. And I think that's given us a lot of leeway in terms of building around Harley moving forward.
Credit to Andrew McQualter, talk about the relationship that he's built with Harley. The two Victorian country boys, Inverloch and Tongala, connecting and, building relationships. And it's clear that he's now part of the furniture, part of the fabric. And it's pretty bloody exciting. So well done, West Coast. And, I think we're in agreement that Harley takes a big leap next year.
Just on the John Worsfold medal, so he finishes third, Harley, which is probably around the mark. I think in terms of, when Jack Graham copped that 4-week suspension, we thought, all right, well, Harley or someone else might jump into the top 3 along with Bakes, who was always going to win it, and well done to him. And then Ruben. So he jumps into third, Graham fourth. Hoffey was fifth, I'm pretty sure. I guess the surprising one for me in terms of the top 10 was Ryan Marrick at 6.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, he would have played almost every game, I reckon. I'm struggling to land. I know we're going to go through every player shortly. I'm struggling to land on exactly where I rated Marrick's season because his finish to the year was terrible. But overall, I think he was a positive. I thought Hoff might have been maybe one spot higher, maybe. But he had a great year. Fifth. He's going to be in our top. He's going to finish top 10 in our best and fairest every year for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. Do we want to go through some pass marks or pass or fails or rating and player seasons?
How long we got here?
We've got about 6 or 7 minutes.
All right. Let's go through them quickly. Pass, fail, go from number one all the way down.
Okay.
You go one player, I'll go the next.
All right, so Liam Ryan, for me, he's a fail, and I think it's a good result that he's explored his options to go to St Kilda.
Yeah, fitness wasn't there, didn't work hard enough defensively. Still got signs of being a damaging player, but just didn't put in enough work ethic. Unfortunately, when we didn't have the ball, I'd agree with you, a fail on that.
Okay, Jake Waterman?
Only because of injury, a fail, but no other reason outside of that.
He's going to have a big year next year, Jake. If he stays fit, he's massive. He's worth a couple of wins to us. Liam Baker, could not have done more in his first season as a West Coast player. Best and fairest. I think he's shown exactly why we traded for him. And that's the level that we get from him every year for the rest of his career. And once we start winning games and we're more competitive, he just becomes even more valuable year on year.
Yeah, I mean, if you told us that Liam Baker won the club champion award, I thought we would have won 7 or 8 games because of the other players he would have had around him. But unfortunately, that just didn't materialise due to injuries and other factors. But, just so happy to have him with the club. And I think he'll be captain next year. I reckon the hard call will be made. That's my tip. Oscar gone. They might say to Liam Duggan, Duggo, you've been great, but maybe it's time for a fresh voice with everything we're building, and we can't ignore Liam Baker. Similar to GWS, where Cornelio came in, he was captain. It didn't quite work, and they said, we just have to make Toby Green captain, and that had a big impact on them. I feel the same decision needs to be made at West Coast.
Dom Sheed, it's a fail because he didn't play, but I think Dom Sheed as a retired Eagle, that's, his legend only grows from here. Great career, massive moment. So we farewell him with a very fond feel.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Jaden Hunt, I think he was a fail this year, but as a free agent pickup, to do a lot of hard work for us on a wing, I think he's been a success. And he's done a lot of hard yards for us, so we thank him for his service. Yeah,
ticks for the overall move, that this season was a failure. You could tell that his drive wasn't quite there anymore, and he was off to do things that he enjoys, like surfing waves and playing golf.
Yeah, fair enough. Elliot Yeo, massive fail in terms of getting his body right, and the contract just looks horrid in hindsight. But if he gets himself right for next year, he's going to be massive alongside Harley and the young boys in the midfield.
Hopefully a year off just freshened up the body even more, and we get the delayed benefit of Yowie next year, but it's been incredibly hard without him. So obviously a fail for this season.
Big pass mark for Ruben Jimby has become one of the best or most exciting young medium defenders in the comp.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Just fantastic to see what he's become. Not as a midfielder, but that's okay. Again, another reason why the rebuild may take a little bit longer, but overall will be better off. He's the Josh Weddle of West Coast.
Elijah Hewitt, pass mark. The fact that he was able to get his body right and play some consistent football. He's still probably, I reckon, a year or two from really launching, but real positive that he was out in the park.
Pass because he's played, I think he's still got a lot more to offer. I think if you told us that Huey would have played this many games, you would have expected a bigger impact, but that should come now. But yeah, it's not quite at the level we'd like him to be, but a pass because of the continuity.
Pass for Harley Reid. His first half of the season wasn't great, but once he got fit, he was fantastic. His block of footy before he got injured, that 6 or 7 weeks was first class. So he gets a pass, under tough circumstances. Yeah,
for sure. Considering the amount of footy he played as our number one mid, he broke through that barrier really well, and he's still a second-year player. Undoubtedly a big pass.
So I'm giving Brockman a pass, but only just. And the reason I'm giving it to him is because he had to play in a new role through the midfield, and I didn't mind what I saw, but there's a lot more to come from him.
Yeah, just a pass, but by 50.1%, because he played the games. But my God, he's capable of so much more. He's under pressure going into pre-season, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's going to be a good player and a good team. We're not there yet. Tim Kelly is a fail for me. His first half of the season was absolutely abhorrent. Dropped himself to the waffle to play midfield and was better in the latter part of the year. Still not sure about the 2-year deal.
Fail overall.
Oscar Allen, fail. Body let him down. Really difficult circumstances. We could do an entire podcast on his 2025 season. But he goes to Brisbane with our blessings, and we'll take pick 2.
Thank you very much.
Noah Long, fail. So much promise early in his career. Hasn't quite been able to nail down the spot, but he'll get more chances to impress. Yeah,
it's a shame that he hasn't played more footy, and big question mark on him going into 2026, but a fail overall, just didn't get the games.
Liam Duggan, I'm going to call a fail because he has set high standards on being a really strong role player at West Coast, but I don't think he was consistent enough for us when we really needed it this year.
Yeah, a pass for his off-field exertions, a fail on the field. Just didn't quite match the level, I agree, that he's capable of.
All right, we're actually about to run out of time. So we've gone 1 to 14. Do you want to pick this back up at a later date?
We'll pick it up on Jamie Cripps. We'll do that next week, and we'll carry on with the rest of the review, and then some other matters that will no doubt eventuate. But leave with us your thoughts on the players today and everything else we've discussed, and we'll resume that next week.
All right, Garby, take care, mate. We'll chat soon.
Thanks, mate.